This is Anything But Footy. I'm John, and Michael's here again.
Well, I'm not there. We're
But you're
opposite
there.
ends of the country again, but I'm here. We're here by modern technology. The two of us are at opposite ends of the country, but able to get together for the Anything But Footy podcast. And what a weekend of sport, and differing fortunes as well for two of our big sports, John.
Yeah, episode 3 is special. Now, that's not my description, but a special on the Euro Indoors Athletics, which has been taking place in Glasgow, and a special on the World Track Cycling Championships in Poland. And as you say, differing fortunes, but also differing standards, Michael, and we'll maybe talk about that as we continue Anything But Footy. And that's what we're here for, a review of the sporting headlines this weekend you might not have heard about as much as you should have. And I just want to say as well that we're not anti-football, because you'll never believe it, but Michael is a Leeds United commentator. I'm a Norwich City season ticket holder. But we want to talk about Olympic sport when it's not the Olympics, because it's just as important what is going on as we build up to Tokyo 2020. And I think it's right, because we were both born in Olympic years. It was always meant to be. My dad was born in Olympic year. My son was born in Olympic year. That's what it's all about. So we're not anti-football, but we just want to talk anything but footy. Just for a change. So
I've got a daughter also born in an Olympic year as
there
well,
you go.
2012. So it's made for us to come together to do this, Anything But Footy.
Exactly. So coming up, we'll review Glasgow 2019. They say that people make Glasgow. I reckon that sport does as well. They put on some great events, and the Emirates Arena has been a superb venue this Euro Indoor Championships. And a year and a bit to go before Tokyo, the British cyclists show they are human as Australia ramp up the pressure. Also, Tom Daley's back diving after being a dad, and all that jazz. We'll look back at the career of one of Great Britain's best swimmers. How can people get in touch, Michael?
They can get in touch with us on Facebook. We've got a Facebook page there, Anything But Footy. You can tweet us at Anything But F. You can find us on Instagram, on YouTube as well. And let that debate continue on social media. You can also, of course, drop us an email, anythingbutfooty@gmail.com. We'll start then, John, with the Queen of Scots, Laura Muir, double gold medalist, the first ever person to do a double-double at the Euro Indoors. First Brit to do that. Bit of history for Laura Muir tonight.
Yeah, and double-double means she's won the 1,500 metres and the 3,000 metres, 2 Euro Indoor Championships on the trot. So Belgrade in 2017, I think, and now Glasgow in 2019. She's been described, Michael, as off the scale by some of her other British competitors. And I think you can absolutely show that this young lady, you know, she's only just finished studying. She's qualified as a vet. She's now in her full year of actually training and competing. And boy, oh boy, I mean, I watched the 3,000 metres on Friday night, and she just burst away with 200 metres to go, and comfortable, in her 1,500 metres heats, which was just an hour and a half before it. It was incredible to see that. And then you saw that grit and determination in her face as well, and she won that second gold as well, which was impressive in the 1,500 metres. And they described it as a procession, and it really was. She gritted her teeth with 2 laps to go, 400 metres on the measurement, and she just wound it up, and they never got anywhere near her. And it's just, I think, interesting to see whether she can now take this to the outdoor season, because the World Championships are in Doha later in the summer, quite late in the athletics calendar. Is she a medal contender for the outdoor season, Michael?
I think the hard work starts now for Laura Muir, and that might sound a little bit glib when you come off the back of, as we've already mentioned, the double-double. But you look at her record in some of the major outdoor championships, and she's been the nearly woman over recent years. 5th in the 1,500 metres in 2015 in the World Championships in Beijing. 1,500 metres at the Olympic Games in Rio 2016. We witnessed her finishing 7th out there. And in London, well, she got her tactics wrong, really. I think she showed a bit of inexperience. 4th in the 1,500 metres, missing out on a medal. Then 6th in the 5,000 metres. She's going to come up against a lot of very good Ethiopians and Kenyans. Obviously, Caster Semenya has run a 1,500 metres as well, and is one of the athletes that's beaten Laura Muir before in the past. So, yes, she has a big challenge now. She has to now take what she's done on that indoor track, an indoor track that she knows very well because she trains there, but obviously she's gone to the championships. Clearly, you know, she was the face of the games in the same way that Jessica Ennis-Hill was in 2012 and, you know, Ailey Doyle was in 2014. She was the face. She was the one that was put on all the posters to make it commercially viable. She's done her job, but can she now go to Doha? And then I would suspect even more importantly, then go to Tokyo. So she's got an October Doha meeting and then go to Tokyo in what is 508 days' time.
I mean, she's obviously a great indoor runner, as you rightly say. And she said afterwards that she was absolutely relieved because, you know, the pressure was on her to do this. But as you say, you described her as the Queen of Scotland. Now, I think, you know, obviously she's done it brilliantly in these Euro Indoor Championships. But actually, she didn't impress me as much as Katarina Johnson-Thompson. And you know I'm not the biggest fan of the so-called KJT. But I thought that on her pentathlon gold medal was absolutely up there with what I'd seen from a British performer, because I think the expectation was that she was going to win it, and I thought she absolutely performed. She had a slight wobble again on the long jump, which is her best event, which seems a bit weird. But boy, oh boy, what a difference a couple of years makes for Katarina Johnson-Thompson.
Yeah, we have to obviously preface that with the fact that Nafi Thiam, the world champion and the Olympic champion from Belgium, wasn't in Glasgow. She would have been a real threat. But yeah, congratulations to Katarina Johnson-Thompson. She's 26 now, so she needs to start winning these medals. If she's going to have major outdoor success in a World Championships, Olympic Games, she needs to start doing that in the next couple of years. But yeah, she's won the European indoor title to add to the world indoor title. But I would just like to highlight as well the performance of Niamh Emerson, who's just 19, silver medalist, wasn't originally selected by British Athletics, was invited by European Athletics. She collapsed across the line in the 800 metres. She registered 5 PBs. And this medal, this silver medal, comes off the back of a medal in the Commonwealth Games as well. And as I said, Katarina Johnson-Thompson is 26. Jessica Ennis-Hill's retired. And it's such a relentless thing, sport, that Niamh Emerson is just coming up on the rails, isn't she? She is out sprinting them, if you like, down that back straight at the moment, because she's 19 and putting herself in a really, really good position. And yeah, credit to European Athletics for inviting her. British Athletics didn't obviously originally select her.
Absolutely. World Junior Champion she was as well. And you obviously interviewed her down in the Gold Coast as well in those Commonwealth Games. And she's just great to see, you know, another kind of British star coming through, a bit like Katarina Johnson-Thompson did, of course, in 2012. Just one issue I've got with Kat. I don't like the initials. I don't like any. I'm not a big initial fan. You know, just look at AVB. Who was some football manager. You know, it just doesn't work. So that would be my only issue with Katarina Johnson-Thompson. But look, she's on her way, as you say, 2 Euro indoors and a world indoors title, a Commonwealth gold outdoor as well. Massive, massive pressure ahead of Doha now, coming up later this year, to see whether she can, like Laura Muir, step up. Now, the women are dominating in British athletics, aren't they? I mean, four gold medals at the Euro indoors, all from the women, and I thought Shalane Oskin-Clark, again with that gold in the 800 metres, you know, she got a silver 2 years ago, front running at its very best in Glasgow.
Yeah, she was a silver medalist in Rio. She has been a World Championship finalist as well, Shalane Oskin-Clark. That, I'm sure, will give her huge confidence now, and she must look at what she's done in Glasgow over the weekend. She must look at that gold medal when she puts herself to bed tonight. And she must think then, going to Doha, that she's got to be a contender. And as you say, it's the women at the moment that you look at, and you think if Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which is the team name, are going to hit those medal targets in Doha, and going to hit those medal targets going forward to Tokyo, which of course then brings in their huge amount of funding, it looks as though it's going to be relays and potentially Laura Muir, Katarina Johnson-Thompson and others that will be winning those medals at the moment. You know, that's not to take anything away from Jamie Webb, who's won a medal tonight, and Tim Duckworth, who's won a medal in the heptathlon as well. Potential, you know, successor to Daley Thompson. But at the moment, when you look on that world stage and you think, well, who might go to Doha and win medals? You're looking at Laura Muir, maybe. You're looking at Katarina Johnson-Thompson. You're certainly looking at those 4x400 metre relay women as well, because they always seem to win a medal led home by Eilidh Doyle. And you're looking at someone like Holly Bradshaw as well, who's won a silver tonight. Has had wretched time with injuries, but seems to be coming back into a little bit of form as well.
You haven't even mentioned Dina Asher-Smith there.
Well, no, obviously, because she wasn't in Glasgow.
She will win in Doha. She'll get something.
She will come into the mix again. Whether she's good enough to do it, she had a fantastic season last year. Was rightly nominated for Sports Personality of the Year after her exploits in Berlin. Gold medals out there in relays, in 100, in 200 meters as well. Whether she can then step up and do that on the world stage again is a big ask for Dina Asher-Smith, but I think she will certainly add to that medal total as well. And I've got to take slight issue with you having a go at Katarina Johnson-Thompson for simply being known by her initials, KJT. She's definitely won me over, because in Australia, in the Gold Coast, she was seriously hurt at the end of her heptathlon there. She won the gold medal, but she still managed to drag herself, not just anywhere to come and be interviewed by me, but dragged herself to the beach to become an interview by me. And if you're going to sit on the beach, on the Gold Coast at the Commonwealth Games and, interview an English or British gold medalist, English as she was there, then, Katarina Johnson-Thompson got herself there, so she won me over for that.
Yeah, look, she's come a long way, and so have British athletics. What is this? They won 12 medals in Glasgow. This is the most successful Euro indoors ever. And you mentioned Eilidh Doyle in the 4x400 metres relay, and again, I think they showed the men what they need to be doing. I thought the men, they were a young 4x4 team, but they just got outthought and outwitted, particularly in the changeovers. But Nielsen, Clark, Anning, and Doyle, and a 51.5 last leg from Eilidh Doyle. I mean, you can always rely on her. You can always rely on her to come and be interviewed by the likes of us, but you can always rely on her to perform as well.
Yeah, she's a fantastic athlete, and I think I said this in a previous episode of Anything But Footy. But what I like about Eilidh Doyle is she's always there, isn't she? She's at the British Championships, she does the Diamond League circuit, and she turns up at all the majors, whether that's indoors and outdoors. She just seems to love to compete. She had a bit of a bad week by her own admission and by her own high standards in the individual. Didn't work out for her, but she refocused and got herself back in the game for this relay. She's won a relay medal at World Championship level. She's won a relay medal at Olympic level. She will look back on her career and look at that medal cabinet and think, yeah, I was pretty good. I was a pretty decent 400-metre runner. And she's just not quite ever got to where she needs to be to win an individual medal. And she's gone close on a couple of occasions. We've had high hopes for her on a couple of occasions. But you're simply a bit like Martin Rooney. You just can't argue with what she can provide to a 4x400 relay team.
We've talked a lot about the British women and the middle distance running and what they've done. I thought one of the performances at Glasgow at these Euro indoors was Chris O'Hare. He was the first British male medalist of the championships. You've mentioned obviously some others there, but what a performance in the 3,000 metres! And of course he was usurped, I suppose. He was the sandwich, the Ingebrigtsen sandwich, I suppose you could say, beaten by the youngster Jakob Ingebrigtsen. And Henrik Older, who frankly looked like Freddie Mercury from the Queen video. I think he was going to burst into a song, "Do You Want to Break Free?" at any moment. But he, by 3,000ths of a second, he managed to hold on to a silver medal. And you just wonder whether Chris O'Hare can work with the Ingebrigtsens a little bit, because they're coached by their dad in Norway. He's said, and in some quarters this could be a little bit controversial, that why can't we beat the Africans? A lot of people say you can never win against the people, the great performance from Ethiopia and Kenya, but why can't they? And I think Chris O'Hare, he's shown that yes, this is a European level, but if you can come through and you can do along with the Ingebrigtsens and try and get this European challenge going once again at the 1,500 metres and the 3,000 metres at world level and 5,000 metres, in the outdoor track, then maybe they've got a chance to try and get some medals in the outdoor season.
And you're a big fan of the Ingebrigtsens, because I remember you messaged me shortly afterwards along the lines of if the Ingebrigtsens were a country, which picks me up on something I once said on the radio back in the day, which is the words, if Yorkshire was a country. They give you awards for that kind of thing, so I'm going to christen you Jonas Knudsen from now on, okay? Yeah, well done to the Ingebrigtsens, the Borleys as well of Belgium in that relay as well. I just wanted to ask you, though, about Richard Kilty. Finishing fourth in the 60 metres. We've spoken about it at length. Wasn't selected by British Athletics initially. Were they justified in their decision in the fact that despite him coming back from his Achilles injury, he didn't get on the podium?
I think it was probably just a race too far for him because, you know, when you're in the championships, you have to do the heats and the semi-finals, and you know, he looked good going into them, and you would go, and I think everyone was saying it was the right decision that he was there to defend his title, but it's the worst place to finish, isn't it? Fourth in a final. I mean, he admitted afterwards he was gutted. He said it felt like a failure. So does it justify the judge's decision? I think they probably should have put him through anyway because he was the defending champion, and we did put a really, as we talked about in a previous podcast, you know, it were a really tough target to get through. So roll on the outdoor season for him. I mean, you know, he's part of the relay squad as we've been talking about, and we'll see how he gets on. And it'll be good to have some of the. It's weird actually talking about athletics and not talking about our British sprinters because we haven't had them performing here in Glasgow. But you know, indoors is very, very different to the outdoor season. One thing though, before we move on this anything but footy special on the Euro Indoor Championships in Glasgow, the medal presentations in a corridor. Now I know they want to do something a bit different because in Berlin last year it was in the middle of the park, in the middle of the town, with some strange people singing some strange national anthems. I don't think Dina Asher-Smith particularly liked the national anthem in Berlin last year, but in the European Championships outdoor. But in a corridor, Michael?
Yeah, it seemed to me that the medals were handed out in the foyer, and it kind of goes back to Sochi. They built that hugely expensive Winter Olympic Park, and to try and justify the expense of that and all the cheating that was going on around that, they decided to hand the medals out in what they called the Medal Plaza. Now, it kind of worked in the Winter Olympics in 2014. It was a nice focal point for people coming out from different events, whether it was the ice skating, the speed skating, whatever, and seeing the medals handed out. Berlin then tried something different. Glasgow obviously then thought, well, we have to do the same. We can't just give these medals out in the middle of the arena. Yeah, to move them into the foyer, a little bit disrespectful, I felt. At points, I was looking at some of those athletes collecting the medals thinking I should be ordering a burger and chips and maybe a cola off them at the moment. They kind of stood there. I felt a little bit sorry for them. I just wanted to add as well done to the British 4x400 metres team. From 2010, who received their silver medal upgrade, Nicola Sanders, Marilyn Okoro, Lee McConnell, and the always wonderful Perry Shakes Drayton. They also won an upgraded medal, the 4x400 metres, from the Beijing Olympics in 2008, and they got their silver medal at these indoors as well. But yeah, shame it had to be given to them in what looked like a service area of the arena.
Yeah, has a gold medalist ever been asked where the toilets are before? Anyway, right, this is Anything But Footy. Still to come, we're going to talk diving because Daley is back. But first, as this special continues, we move from the European Indoors in Glasgow to the World Track Cycling Championships in Poland. And a contrasting mix of emotions for Great Britain really started off brilliantly, Michael, with Elinor Barker storming to victory with a gold medal in day one of the event. The rainbow jersey was hers after a huge crash. It was absolutely incredible from her, but it really went downhill from that point on. And all we're talking about is the likes of Laura. We did win some medals, silver medals in the pursuits for the men and the women, but injury to Katie Archibald with concussion, and she'd stepped in for Laura Kenny, who'd been unwell. What did you make of Poland and the World Track Cycling Championships?
Just the one gold medal. Great Britain 6th in the medal table. Stephen Park, the performance director, has been talking earlier, saying with 508 days to Tokyo, don't write the British team off yet. And I agree with him, actually, because I think next year will be a bigger indicator. Because if you look at 2015, so the equivalent championships a year out from the Rio Olympics, Great Britain were 10th in the medal table. They brought home just 3 silver medals. They then go to Rio in 2016. Every track cyclist gets a medal. They come home with 12. If you look at 2016, when the World Track Cycling Championships were held in London, so we're, 5-6 months out of Rio, 9 medals, 5 golds, first in the medal table. You can see the projection. Go back even further to 2012, 5-6 months out of the London Olympics. The World Track Cycling Championships are held in Melbourne. 13 medals, including 6 golds, second in the medal table. So I think there's some positives to take. Jack Carlin's had an amazing year. Katie Marchant came up a bit short in Poland, but she won that World Cup silver in New Zealand in January. And when you've got the experience of people like Ed Clancy, Jason Kenny coming back to their best as well, I think there's lots to be positive about. Britain has really dominated cycling, but they've dominated it at the Olympic level. 14 medals in Beijing, 8 in London, 6 golds in Rio.
2008, really, Beijing, when Great Britain started dominating, as you rightly say. And you mentioned a couple of performances there. I thought Ethan Hayter as well in the Omnium, picking up a bronze medal. They reckon he's the next Bradley Wiggins, but, he was beaten by the New Zealand Campbell Stewart. But, he admitted inexperience played the part in that. He can learn from that. That's why they're in these events. And the same with Elinor Barker, who had to stand in the Madison for Katie Archibald. I mean, defending world champion Archibald, to not be able to compete in one of her best events was absolutely devastating for her. And Laura Kenny, it shows they're human, but also, things have changed for Laura Kenny. She's a mum, and as we all know, you pick things up from children that you have no idea what on earth you've got. And she was just like, I didn't feel that well in the team pursuit, where she was beaten by Australia, and so were the men, including Ed Clancy, as you say. So I think you're right. Look, we're 6th in the medal table. We're not worrying about it, but it is a different level to the European indoors of athletics, isn't it? That's the thing, to try and just we've talked a lot about athletics in this podcast, in this episode, but this is a level above the Europeans.
Yeah, I think you've just got to have confidence in what the British cycling programme are doing. British athletics have had a fantastic weekend. They will rightly laud themselves about the weekend, but to be brutally honest, to all intents and purposes, as far as, making a difference in terms of public perception and brutally as well funding, this weekend for British athletics, not overly important. Now, there will be athletes that will take heart from their medals, will gain confidence. There will be athletes that have got great experience this weekend. But, Doha and then Tokyo is what it's all about. For the track cycling team, as I've already explained, they are building up to Tokyo. That is when they'll want to do it. My final point on this is I do feel a bit sorry for Muir Evans, because Laura Kenny had said that she was feeling ill all week. So I don't understand why she opted to take part in that women's team pursuit, because I think if Muir Evans had got the chance, that silver might have been converted to gold. Having said that, in full disclosure here, I'm a big fan of Muir Evans, because I was once on a metro train, and something had happened in the world of sport, and I was required to broadcast urgently. And as you know, nowadays with Wi-Fi and laptops, you can pretty much get on air anywhere in the world at any time. But the only place I could get any kind of reception to get on the radio to broadcast was by actually literally sitting on the feet of Muir Evans. So I was sat on her feet on a metro train in Australia, broadcasting back to the good people of Leeds and Yorkshire in a radio station there. And she thought it was absolutely hilarious. And she said she didn't mind me sitting on her feet, just as long as I didn't interview her live on the radio at the time. So, yeah, I've got a lot of time for Muir Evans. I just wonder whether that team pursuit silver might have been gold, if perhaps she got the nod ahead of the ill Laura Kenny.
But do you leave out the greatest Olympian female athlete of all time for Great Britain?
If she's not well, if she's not been feeling well all week, you've got to put side before self.
But you go back with the Richard Kilty argument. Well, sorry, mate, you didn't hit the time, so you shouldn't be there. These are the decisions that people have to make.
Yeah, and the decisions have been made, obviously. But I think maybe if Laura Kenny wasn't feeling as well as she should, and she said, obviously, in all the interviews afterwards, that she hadn't been feeling great all week, maybe she should have made the decision or gone to the seniors, the principals in the team, and said, look, I don't feel as good as I know I can be. We know how good she is. We know what her medal record is. She's not a young cyclist anymore. She's an experienced cyclist. Maybe at that point she should have said, look, I don't think today is going to be my day.
An athletics and cycling special of anything but footy, but we want to get into swimming and diving before we finish. And Jazz Carlin, one of our greatest ever British swimmers, has decided to focus on the kids, to mentor the youth squad for Wales and a Learn to Swim programme. What a performance she's been, though, Michael.
She's hanging up the goggles, isn't she? Announced her retirement this week. The story for Jazz Carlin really was obviously that absolute heartbreak on missing out on selection in London 2012, both individually and the relays as well. She'd had a terrible time with glandular fever, with tonsillitis, but she came back in Rio and she won 2 silver medals there in the 400 metres freestyle and the 800 metres freestyle. Regular medalist at Commonwealth, European level. She has won medals at the World Championships as well. Both in long course and short course swimming. But the 2 silvers in Rio really sort of just capped the career. And yeah, we wish her well in her new ambassadorial role with Swim Wales. And staying in the water and aquatics, Tom Daley is back after his year out, being a dad, of course. And he's come back in medal-winning form, a silver in the 10-metre platform. Bronze in the 3-metre synchro with Grace Reed as well. A couple of other medals just to talk about before we discuss Tom in more detail. Jack Law winning a bronze in the 3-metre springboard and a bronze in the synchro with Dan Goodfellow. And Dan Goodfellow's that person that was always the other one, wasn't he, in Rio, if you'll recall, because he died with Tom Daley, poor bloke, and everyone went, "Oh, can I get an interview with Tom Daley and the other one?" Poor Dan.
Well, he's making a name for himself. They've been training together, him and Jack, for 6 months in Leeds, and they're beginning to get there. So, fingers crossed that will continue. But you're right about Tom. We talked about Laura Kenny. Things have changed because she's a mum. He's now a dad, and he's actually delivered. I think they described it as the best series of dives of his life. Nearly, he was 10 points off his lifetime best score in the 10 metres in his performance in this World Series in Tokyo. What a performance from Tom Daley, and I think it's good that he's going to go for the Olympics next year, or it seems that way, because he is such a name within British sport and also swimming and diving, and I think it's important that he continues on that. And talking of big events happening in London, I believe that there is a big event for the divers. The World Series will be at the London Aquatic Centre, where, of course, 2012 was held in May. So Tom will be performing there in just a few months' time on that.
And I do think with Tom, sorry to interrupt, I do think with Tom, I think British diving generally has so much just to be thankful for him, because he really, coming through at such a young age, really has kind of framed what the sport has been able to do, because it's his medal success that's led to that funding that's come into the sport, which means that we're now talking about people like Jack Law and Dan Goodfellow. And the other thing I'd say about Tom Daley is he is actually genuinely a really, really nice person. And you and I have both been in situations where Tom Daley's been at one of those media events where he's required to do 35 different interviews, one after the other. And I've watched him closely at those things, thinking at one point today, his eyes are going to roll, the smile is going to drop, he's not going to be happy with where he's being taken next. But if it was a mask, it never fell, which makes me believe that it's not a mask, and he is just genuinely a really, really good bloke.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think you're right, and he is one of those best. Quick word on bobsleigh. I know you wanted to talk about that in this Anything But Footy episode 3.
Yeah, well, we're talking about retirements. We talked about Jazz Carlin. Happy retirement as well to John Jackson, who's a 39-year-old Royal Marine. And again, I'm going to bring funding up here. I seem to do it all the time. But John Jackson will get a bronze medal, probably, from the Sochi 2014 Olympics, where the British four-man bob of John Jackson, Stuart Benson, Joel Fearon and Bruce Tasker originally finished 5th, but behind 2 Russian crews. So both of them obviously have subsequently failed various doping tests. So the bobsleigh team will get their bronze medal. I just wonder whether, had they got that bronze medal at the time, whether the funding would have increased ahead of Pyeongchang, which it didn't. Now, it might not have increased. Badminton didn't see an increase after winning a bronze in 2016. But Pyeongchang was terrible for the bobsleigh team. The 4 men finished 17th and 18th, 12th in the 2-man. The unfunded women finished 8th. Their funding was cut 5 months before the Games. They had £5 million invested in the lead up to Pyeongchang. It could have been more had they won that bronze medal at the time. And the World Championships are going on at the moment. Brad Hall and Nick Gleeson have finished 4th. They've had to crowdfund their bob. Their sled cost them £6,000. That might just convince UK sport to reinvest. That was the best GB finish for 53 years. And as I said, happy retirement to John Jackson, who will retire, I'm sure, as an Olympic bronze medalist.
And not yet retired, 37-year-old Roger Federer He was 19 years of age when he won his first ATP title in Milan in 2001. He's just won his 109th. Just won his 100th, and he joins Jimmy Connors. As Jimmy rightly said on Twitter, welcome to the triple-digit club. He's on 109 ATP titles and World Grand Slam titles, all that kind of stuff. Roger Federer, I mean, he's just the greatest, isn't he? I don't think there's any argument.
21 years of age when he won Wimbledon, 100 titles, 20 majors, 6 year-end championships. He's held the #1 ranking for a record number of weeks, the oldest ever world #1 as well. You wouldn't bet against him overhauling Jimmy Connors' 109, but yeah, congratulations to Roger Federer. One other retirement we should mention just before we go this week, James Degale, the first Brit to win Olympic gold and then a world title in boxing. He announced his retirement after losing to Chris Eubank Jr. James Degale, thank you for the memories.
Absolutely. If only we could all be as good as them. You can get in touch anytime, as we said, at anythingbutf on Twitter. Get it right. Facebook and Insta as well. And keep us informed with what you want us to cover as the weeks continue.